Hello and very warm welcome to Dr. Zia Ahmed YouTube channel. In this small video, I'm going to introduce to you people the novel Twilight in Delhi by Ahmed Ali. The purpose of this video is what is the best way to read the novel Twilight in Delhi, or what are the important segments or aspects of the novel which the teacher should be teaching in the classroom. In other words, a simple guideline for those people as well who want to take an examination out of that. So major aspects of this novel will be talked about in this video. First of all, the title should be discussed. Title is Twilight in Delhi. That twilight is in many respects not going to be brightness or not going to be total darkness. It's going to be twilight in the streets, in the roads, or on the buildings of Delhi. Why it is so? It's very much important to know because the British had occupied Delhi, Mughal Muslim government had ended, and that is why it was a total chaotic situation and there was twilight in Delhi. For further explanation of Twilight, you can go to another video where I have talked about the types of Twilight Delhi was going to suffer about. Not only this is important to teach with respect to history and the moment of history when the things were being done in favor of colonial setup of the British people as compared to Mughal Muslim government. And secondly, the novel is replete with the culture of the Muslim Mughal people. Teachers and the students should focus on the culture in the same way as when we read Chinua Achebe's novel Things Fall Apart, we focus on culture, what cultural debate is done there. Same is the case here, that you can talk about the dresses, the caps, the beards, the burqas, or the household of the people of Delhi who were mainly Muslim, and they were from the royal families most of the time. They were the elites of that time, and so their culture should be very much important. The way the marriages were celebrated, the way the kahars would carry the women in dolis, and the way the people contacted with each other, sometime on pigeon flying, sometime on kite flying, sometime on playing cards, and sometime on singing, sometime on qawwalis, sometime on mazars, and most of the time in saying of the prayers. So that's a type of culture that existed at that time also. The dress used to be very important at that time. The model dressing is that of Meir Nihal of that time, and then the dressing intervention was being done by the British people who also imposed their own style of dressing. So in that way, culturally this novel is very much rich. If you look at the marriage ceremonies, definitely that are really very great to perform there. Similarly, the household, how the people cooked food, how they ate food, and what was the type of courtyard, how the people would sleep, what kind of light arrangements were there. This is all, very much important inside this novel. Not only these cultural things which were visible, but also the kind of superstitions. For example, the people would put their brooms under the poles of some charpai if they wanted to stop the kind of stormy situation. And same was the case with genies and the peers, or the people who removed these genies, or the treatment of the people instead of the doctor. It was done mainly with the help of the jinn peers or other things like that. So in this way, taweez used to be very much important role to play in that, and the prayers of the people again were very much important. So that was the Muslim Mughal culture in Delhi at that time, which is definitely under decline. It had certain other aspects as well, which are not, according to me, that good one. That was the role of courtesans in the Mughal culture. The protagonist of this novel, Mir Nihal, did maintain a courtesan, and he used to feel happy while meeting her, even when he was married and had a large family. That Baban Jan, when she died, and Mir Nihal was very much upset. This is not only true in case of Mir Nihal, it was true in case of his son as well, because he was very much interested in watching songs and listening to the songs, watching dances of Mushtri Bai, and ultimately these things continue with that. And Jummah prayer, special preparations for Jummah prayer, that all is a part of the culture. Gathering in the market, gathering in the mosque, etc. This is going to be the cultural aspect of Mughal Muslim Delhi. And the next thing that must be taught politically. The political aspect in that novel, definitely one political aspect is that Mughal Muslim kings are thrown out, the princes have to go out, and no stipends were there for them, and princesses, they had to marry the people who were far lower than their statuses. So sometimes they married their own cooks, and they married sometimes the kahars who carried their dolis. But this was the case definitely, and that is why Mughal Muslim government people and the elite people were going down the drain, and the British people, they were coming up. Their government was there, their language, their culture, their way of governing, and their way of colonization, and then strengthening their colonization and ultimately trying to hegemonize the culture of the people in India. And that was the kind of change which politically was coming up. Muslim had most of the time resigned to their fate. The other people also resigned to their fate, and they were just waiting what's going to happen. And most of them were forced to follow the British way of life. For example, Meir Nihal's own sons were government employees, so some of them have gone outside Delhi, outside the house also for the sake of government. So people were accepting gradually. The visibility of the British people was present in the shape of their army, in the shape of their soldiers, in the shape of their officers, colonial administrators, or sometimes they celebrated the kind of thing which happened in London. They did that too in India. And the weapon system and the army style of fighting, all these things were there, which showed the British presence, the power of the British presence, especially the red shirts, for example, they were wearing. Their soldiers were wearing red shirts. These were really the common scene that could be found out. And the changes which they had brought inside the system of judiciary, of schools, of the education, of that of the policing, of that of the governing, all these things were present there. So in that way, this was a political situation that must be taught through this novel. Same is the case in this novel on many other aspects that should be taught about. For example, women's condition. This is very important to teach the people. Women's condition was not that good as it is today, because they were living almost in an ancient society of the Mughal people. Though Mughal men were very much advanced according to that age, but they were keeping their women as within the four walls of the house. For example, the writer Ahmed Ali tells us that women's life brought only a little bit of change at the time of marriages, at the time of some death, or the time of some gathering. They would go outside or meet the people. Otherwise, most of the time their life was spent within the four walls. And their condition was not that of some power or authority. Decision making was in the hands of the men. For example, Mrs. Meir Nihal, Begum Meir Nihal, did something in her home, but only after asking her husband. And same was the case with Begum Waheed, who was the daughter of Meir Nihal. She was widowed at the time of 19 years of age, and she decided to live in that very family instead of leaving them and marrying again. Same is the case with Mehru, for example. She had no choice of herself, and she had to marry someone unknown, which she didn't like at all. And so these are some of the instances which give a lot of light they will throw on the fact that women were not free at that time. They 100% depended on the authority and power of decision of their men. For example, the second choice of Asghar after the death of his wife Bilqis was Zohra, and he really wanted to marry her. It was necessary perhaps also because the daughter which he was having was unable to take care of that daughter. But the parents of Zohra would not agree with that, even when Zohra had claimed that she is also in love with Asghar after the death of her sister. So in this way, women's condition was not the condition which should be called a progressive, improved. They were still the kind of traditional women sitting inside their household only and having their authority and fighting with each other, superstitious as well, and they were not doing anything like that. Then the most important aspect of the novel is there that language of the novel should be taken care of. We can see occasionally that it is studied with the kind of Urdu examples, Urdu poetry, Urdu wording, Urdu styles of these fakirs or these beggars. Their sounds could be heard, and sometimes the Qawwali is translated in Urdu. And the beauty of Ahmed Ali's language is that it looks like the Indian language, because he sometimes translates these Urdu verses and sometimes transliterates them, and sometimes both the things are present here. And the presence of these things, it reflects very much the culture of Lucknow, the culture of Delhi, etc. The poets, for example, all these quotations are coming out from that. And then the kind of preparations which they were mentioned by using the Urdu words, the Hindi words there, for Mehndi, for example, for Mayum, for example, for marriage ceremonies, for example, the groom and the kind of other words which are used, they are from Urdu vocabulary or Hindi vocabulary, which reflects the local culture or the local taste of language. So that was the kind of experimentation which every postcolonial writer is doing by including the local indigenous language and its impressions, styles of sentences and structure inside the English language. So that is also another hallmark of the story. You can also find out lots of details of the British people who are present there that are mentioned inside that, alongside these aspects of this novel. These 3-4 aspects may be, for example, the title, the women's condition, then it is the Mughal culture which was under decline, the presence of the British people, the language, inclusion of the poetry. All these 3-4 aspects of the story may be captured there. And the change which was coming inside gradually, which was seeping into the lives of the Indian people in Delhi, that should also be another aspect to talk about, where this change was occurring. Definitely inside the household, inside the men and material, and inside the thinking of the people, and inside the willing to support the system, whatever it is going to be, because people have to survive after all, and so they decided to cooperate with the British people in order to do all that. And so in that way, that change was coming up. So this is what the novel needs to be considered before you go for that, and the students can take up the assignments for that in order to prepare for the examination. Find out the details in the text. Whatever I've spoken in this short video, I can only provide some hints to the students, and if they like to go deeper into the text, they need to watch other videos or read the text somewhere. So that's all from me about this novel. Hope to see you in some next video. Hopefully some of the things have been clarified. It is this type of guidance for the teacher and the students. So if you like it, do not fail to subscribe and hit the like button. And if you have some queries, do not fail to post there. Sometime I look for that. So far, keep happy, keep peaceful, keep loving the people as well. See you next time. By the way, aspect of love may also be talked about. Imaginativeness and of the hero and protagonist may be also talked about. That would be another significant effort by the readers and the teachers there. Thank you. See you next time.